say, okay, I have a lot of money, but you have no money unless you take profits.
When the first ever spot ETF was created for gold 10x.
And the only thing I really knew was Bitcoin at the time, so I just invested very heavily into that. Rode it all the way up.
What's up?
My name is Jeff. Even the creators have said it's going to be the predecessor of CBDC.
What that taught me was that I need to be self-sufficient.
A solid DCA investment strategy, and pretend the red sell button doesn't even exist.
We about to go up like.
Welcome to the DGen Roundtable. Thank you for joining us for a very special show this evening. I'm Brendan, and here at the DGen Roundtable, we discuss crypto-related topics, economics, and other relevant breaking news stories. Today, we have a special guest that I'm absolutely stoked to talk to. And Rags, thank you for coming on the show today from RAGS2RICHES. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Jeff, you were in the host seat tonight, buddy, so I want to throw it over to you. I just want to thank everyone for joining us, and please like, subscribe. This is a show that hopefully brings you value, brings you some information about crypto, the community, and the people that are really building great projects and really taking crypto to the next level. So we're really excited about our guest tonight. And Jeff, I want you to take it away, buddy.
Thanks, Brendan. Appreciate it. What's up, everybody watching? I'm really excited about tonight's show too. Everybody that I've talked to who has talked to you before, Rags, has said nothing but good things. And I'm going to give you a chance to tell us a little bit about yourself personally, but I think I told you back in the day that I learned about you from a buddy of mine. And that's when I really started watching your content, and everything you do is really methodical and well done and researched and accurate. Because a couple of times I've went behind you and researched some of the things you said, and they were pinpoint. So I'm really looking forward to tonight. But yeah, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, guys, I'll say this. I've got a YouTube channel, and it's an absolute honor to be invited on your thing. So thank you very much. My name's Brandon Davis. I created the RAGS2RICHES community probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I've been in crypto since about 2013. I am the co-founder of TEXAN token and owner of $1.riot.com, which is my newsletter. You guys can check it out there. And I'm a content creator pretty much full time at this point. You can find me on Twitter, and you can find me on YouTube. And that's who I am. That's what I do.
Good deal. Well, like I was saying, I heard about you from a buddy of mine, and he's, as far as finances goes, he's one of those friends that you have. You ever had that friend that's really good at making money?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
A buddy like that. You're probably that friend in your group. So he's that guy. And since I know him, he's always a step ahead of the game. And back in the day, I was all into Bitcoin and Ethereum. Only thing I had, and a little Cardano. And he's the one that put me on Hex, and he was the one who told me about the upcoming launch and the sacrifice and everything. He's the one that got me in. And he was like, "Hey, man, did you get your TEXAN token?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Yeah." I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, "Yeah, you can claim it." And when I went online, I think it was too late for me to claim it. So then I started researching about it. So I think not nearly enough people in in the whole RH ecosystem are super familiar about it. You want to go a little in depth for me?
Yeah. So, it kind of all goes back to this. There's a lot of cryptocurrency projects out there. And what we wanted to do different was we wanted to identify existing organizations that were thriving outside of cryptocurrency. Not only that, organizations that lined up kind of philosophically with kind of how we feel about and how we see the world. So we thought if we could find these organizations that already had the infrastructure in place, the email lists, they had the leadership, they had the meetups, this and that, 100,000 members or more, if we could approach one of these organizations and say, "Hey, listen, we want to give you guys the gift of the blockchain." Okay. What we actually ended up doing was exactly that. So there's an organization in Texas called the TNM, and these folks are gung-ho about Texas independence, gung-ho about kind of hearkening back to the way that the Constitution was originally written and the intent of the founding fathers. That's what they really want to recapture and then put into play. And this organization has about 450,000 members at this point. And what we did, we approached them and said, hey, we want to give you guys the gift of the blockchain. We had a period of time where you could donate actually directly to the organization. So none of the funds, none of the crypto passed through my hands or Matt's hands whatsoever. It went directly to the organization. And basically, you know, what we did there was, hey, if you give to this organization through this fundraising campaign, just like anybody might get, I don't know, a t-shirt, or somebody might get a nice pair of boots or this or that, we gave the people who donated no value TEXAN token if they chose to add an address. And that was how we distributed TEXAN token. And beyond that, do you guys have any questions about that before I move on there?
No, I'm pretty.
Yeah,
I'm
I do, brother. Because you mentioned some. So my question for you is, how do you pitch the project to all of these different organizations that would make them more receptive to it? Because from the way that I'm looking at it, you know, take into consideration, aside from the recent influx of really large faces in traditional finance being very upfront about now their involvement in crypto, like for the most part, the retail market, the overwhelming majority of retail market hasn't really made the plunge into cryptocurrency yet. So how do you, as a token founder, co-founder, pitch your project to all of these different big companies that might not necessarily have even a little bit of exposure to crypto at all?
Yeah, the first big challenge is actually getting getting a proof of concept to market, right? So we have to be able to say, hey, listen, you know, we want to approach some of the bigger folks out there, some of the enterprise level people. We got to say, hey, here's what we did for XYZ organization. This is the infrastructure that we helped set up. This is the contract, the smart contract that they're using. These are the results. If we have that, it's going to make it a whole lot easier to pitch and talk about. But I think the most important takeaway from all this is really, I believe that this is ahead of its time. And I think that the implications of what we did aren't really going to come to light for probably about 5 or 10 years. Tokenization of everything is going to be the primary jargon that crypto is going to use in the future. You're going to tokenize commodities. You're going to, tokenize all sorts of securities. You're going to tokenize any sort of asset. You're going to tokenize communities. You're going to tokenize morals, ideals. You're going to tokenize real estate. You're going to tokenize land. And we're starting to see that as technology gets better and it's easier to capture those things on the blockchain in some manner or another, you're going to see that everything gets tokenized. So what we're doing is we are tokenizing ideas with this community. We are tokenizing the actual community. It's a 501c4 nonprofit. And like I said, we're establishing ourselves right now so the technology can catch up, but also retail and the sentiment can catch up to understand how important this is going to be in the future. So it's really a play on the future to answer your question. And we had to get those first couple organizations nailed down here to be able to speak intelligently to these, C-level people, for example.
What kind of, go ahead, Brendan.
No, I was just gonna say, you mentioned something about tokenizing a lot of things, and obviously it makes sense, right? When something becomes a token, it's on a blockchain, everyone can see it, it's transparent, and part of the problem with today, and being free, so to speak, or having trouble being free in some places, is that there's not a lot of transparency in our government. There's not a lot of transparency in our world. So being able to use a blockchain to tokenize things to create transparency allows people to live more freely, right? Allows them to know what they're seeing, what they're doing, and everything is open to reading in an open source place. Also, some other benefits of tokenizing, right? Like you talk about real estate, you can now fractionize, right? So instead of maybe buying a whole house, you maybe don't enough money to invest in a whole house. Maybe now you can invest in a fraction of, right, a block or a bit of a house or real estate or whatever the case may be. So there are a bunch of benefits to the blockchain and tokenizing things. What are some additional benefits that you can tell to the audience that really makes it important for us to move in this direction?
Trying to figure out a good way to put this. The blockchain. So people say that the blockchain is freedom, right? They say, all right, blockchain's freedom of money, freedom of this, freedom to do that, this and that. But they don't really understand what's coming out of their mouths. Imagine if you're part of this organization. Imagine if you're somebody who actually believes in the real word, the root word, which is liberty, which is the pretty much the freedom to speak the way that you want, the freedom to have privacy, the freedom to transact, and the freedom not to have somebody else tell you what to do. That's liberty. Okay. What the blockchain does is it allows you, with your units of labor, which is in this case dollars here in the United States, you're able to vote on the blockchain towards this thing that encompasses your ideals. I think that that's going to be the biggest shift in mindset here in the near future, maybe midterm. Okay. It's when people realize that they can band together and they can focus what they believe in. They can focus their monetary energy towards a common goal and a common purpose that actually unlocks abundance for everybody who's participating. Did I answer your question there at all?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you one more,
a
simple question.
Yeah.
Do you think we will ever see presidential elections be done via blockchain? That would be pretty transparent, wouldn't it?
Okay. So that's actually a loaded question, whether or not you realize it. I think the best thing to do is to have it on paper. And I think that it needs to be tallied in 24, no more than 36 hours. However, that wasn't your question. Do I think that will happen? Absolutely, that will happen. I think that it's probably going to happen. It's going to happen overseas first. I know that Cardano, for example, is working with some folks in the Slavic areas, maybe near Russia, those states, to try to get that ironed out. And we're going to see that people want to use technology for everything. They want to use technology for voting. I think it opens up some negative externalities. But the cool thing about human beings is, if you're the type of guy that wants paper, then maybe you're also the type of guy that says, well, I want paper, but here's how to solve the problem of any type of tampering, for example. So we will see the blockchain used in that manner, probably a dedicated blockchain. I don't really think that it would be, Ethereum. I don't think we would piggyback. I think it would be a subnet of something. But yes, that's definitely the direction that we're headed.
Okay, so your answer actually surprised me quite a bit. So you said that having voting done on the blockchain exposes it to some negative externalities. Mm-hmm. Agreed. But paper voting obviously is also exposed to some kind of negative externalities. Yeah. Why is it that you prefer the old-fashioned way of doing it versus doing it on the blockchain? Yeah.
Do you think it's so? I'll do this, and I don't mean to offend you, but I'm going to ask you a question. Away. Go ahead.
No, offend away.
Okay, offend away. Do you think that it's more easy? Do you think it's easier to scale fraud digitally rather than analog?
That answer is the question is good. I believe it is much easier to scale fraud digitally than it is to scale it analog.
And that's my answer.
Because there's a lot more labor involved in analog.
Correct.
Okay, so if that's the case here, let me go ahead and throw this out there then.
Yeah.
So as far as blockchain goes, right? Now this is getting somewhere close to like digital IDs and all that. But let's say you walk in to a voting booth, right? That whole old analog way of doing it. You got one piece of paper, one voting, right? One vote. Okay, you walk through there, and now you are digitally recorded. Hey, you yourself are here. Only it's on the blockchain, so therefore any tampering that is going to be done can be sniffed out. And so but you also know that if you end up with a strange amount of votes, right, there's some kind of like paper tampering going on. I guess you could call it almost like a check and balance.
So what's the question?
So the question is, do you think that would be a better way?
I think that there's a solution. I am a solutions guy. Okay. I will always call out things that I think could be manipulated. And based on my research that I've been doing very heavily for at least the past 5 years here, I've seen countless examples of human beings being crooked. I want to use technology to make sure that this, that we can have better voting systems and we can have a better life. We can have a better education system through the blockchain. But I'm also a realist, and I'm not this guy that drinks the Kool-Aid out there. You guys see it on crypto Twitter all the time. They say blockchain's the answer to everything. Well, no, it's not. It's not the answer to everything. It can solve some problems. So I will say that there is a solution out there I haven't thought deeply about, and I'm not naive or egotistical enough to think that I have the answer for it. But I think that there is an answer for voting, for example. And it's just going to take people trying it out, figuring it out, and having focus on that problem to find a solution. So I think it's out there.
Good stuff. Y'all caught up? Jay, Nate, y'all good with that?
I don't want to. Go ahead, Jeff, because I during when Rags is speaking, there's a few questions that I wrote down, but I want to give the floor over to you so I don't monopolize the the conversation.
Yeah, and that's something I could continue on for quite a while as well. Just like questions here, solutions there, and things like that. So.
No, all good. I think, Rags, you were going to go into the functionality and exactly the purpose of TEXAN token. You were going to go a little more into it now.
Yeah, let's go into it. So this is actually pretty cool because, let me check chat here. I think I recognize quite a few.
A couple people
quite a few names. Yeah. Guys, do not like, comment, or subscribe to me, but like, comment, and subscribe on this channel. These guys have it under control here. I love it. And by the way, guys, very professional and well put together. Thank you. So if you guys listen to my content, I don't really talk about TEXAN that much. And the reason that I don't talk about TEXAN that much is because there is, we see why. The SEC is snooping everywhere. And I just want to make sure that we stay safe and we can weather this storm until we get some more leadership in the SEC. But in terms of TEXAN is the first endowment token. So what do I mean by endowment token? Well, all this ties back to this. If we were going to approach an organization that uses the endowment structure, okay, and really is a perpetuity endowment, they're used to maybe taking donations and locking those donations up for sometimes 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, forever. And they want to use that to have some sort of operating money for operating costs. So what we did with TEXAN was we kind of mimicked it after that. We said that you can take TEXAN token, for example. You can lock it in the contract. It's going to give you trustless yield. There is no OA associated with TEXAN whatsoever. It's going to give you a base percentage rate of 5% per year. Bigger does not pay better with TEXAN. Longer pays better. So the longer that you lock things up, the more yield that you will receive based on that. So the first year will be 5%. If you keep it locked up for 2 years, it'll be 5% plus a small multiplier. So it ends up being about 6%. So for 2 years, it's 5 plus 6. You got 11%. Okay. And this is paid out in TEXAN. This is paid out from the contract. And again, there is no OA. There's actually a special variable that calculates this for you at the end of your stake. But you can stake up to 22 years. If you do stake up to 22 years, which mimics, again, the crowd that we're going after is kind of used to those time horizons and those time frames. If you stake that long, you can get a maximum yield of about 87% per year, and that's averaged out over 22 years. Okay, so essentially that's how this works. Pretty neat. No OA. Extremely simple. Very simple front end at TEXAN.cc/stake. You can get more for delaying your gratification. Where did we get the motivation as well to do it this way? Well, I mean, Richard Hart specifically said in many, many videos, he said, listen, if you're going to create something, then create something with yield, a yield structure, and make sure it's trustless. So we kind of took that to the extreme. Like I said, we destroyed the OA, and it's just you and the smart contract.
You know what that sounds like to me? That sounds like almost like a 401k only crypto style, right? It's kind of like a retirement plan almost. That's what it's kind of sounding like.
Yeah, and here's the neat thing. This is the thing that I saved for you guys. The big innovation here is, let's say that you're 5 or 6 years into your stake, and off of your principal, let's say you have 40 or 50% sitting in some sort of yield. You're able to scrape that with no penalty. So you can actually go in and you can scrape that, you can take that, and you can move it where you want to move it. And I think that's the really, really cool thing. You have the ability, you know, Hex has something called staking ladders. We have something called scraping ladders. Okay, so you actually don't have to sell your position in order to scrape off your interest. So I think that's the really, really big plus with our contract. Now, our contract's different. I certainly wouldn't say it's not like better than Hex. It's just different than Hex. Hex has a T-share system, which is extremely robust and awesome. TEXAN, we wanted to make extremely simple due to the fact that we were going to be onboarding lots and lots of people who are no coiners. So
I love that. That is absolutely perfect, I would think, because like oftentimes, especially when you start like diving to the weeds of, you know, the T-shares and all that, right? I started like, okay, well now I really need to like sit here and look at this and like try and figure it out, right? And it does get a little bit confusing sometimes, especially if you're like brand new, right? And so I say the simpler that you can make it, the better that people, or the more likely that people are going to want to come in. And once we start hitting mass adoption, which should be decently soon, you know, probably next cycle more than likely, but it will definitely be seeing, you know, tremors of it this cycle. We're going to need things like that for sure.
Yeah, we you know, and ultimately the primary utility of this is just to tokenize a community. But the cool thing about this is it's actually, in my opinion, it's better than 99% of any crypto out there, any smart contract, any project. The tokenomics are insane. When you do stake, it actually burns that supply out. There's 100 trillion supply. We launched with 3 trillion, and now due to staking, we are down to 834 billion of these TEXAN token. The only way to actually get more supply into the ecosystem is by a stake maturing and finishing. And if you do end your stake early, all the penalties for those early end stakes, those are burned permanently. So they're not redistributed. They're gone. That actually makes TEXAN token deflationary. So, now don't get me wrong, there's a massive amount of supply, but over time that supply does decrease, and that's even evidenced on the blockchain now. We have a stats page, texan.cc/stats, where you can check that out as well.
I got a couple of questions for you real quick. So I know you said there's no OA. So in response to that, are there any admin keys, or it's completely immutable? Nobody can shut it off.
Nobody can shut it off. The keys were destroyed at launch. The keys do not exist.
No more keys.
Nope.
Nice.
Well, to be fair, I mean, if you shut down the internet, you could destroy it.
Well, the whole world would be screwed if that happened. So everything would be fucked.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, so when you were describing the scraping mechanism for not having, what's the penalty? So let's say I'm making these are theoretical numbers. I stake for 3 years and I get a 15% return, and you can end your stake early and scrape some of your yield, but you're getting 50% out of it.
Yeah, you're getting 50. So we're nailing people upside the head via 50% if you do decide to do that. Now, some of the FUD that inevitably I'll get in the future when people watch this, they'll say, "Oh, that's just BS. You're just trying to get people to lock up so you can dump on their head." And I'm like, dude, listen, we give people the ability to actually scrape, which is really, really cool. Okay, so you actually do have some options other than ending your stake. The other cool thing is, if you do have to early in stake, what can you do first? You can actually scrape before you early in stake, so you can actually get more out of it. And then the other thing is, what is it? 90% of people actually don't stake in TEXAN. So it's a very, very small portion of people actually do that. So yeah.
I got a couple more for you.
Yeah.
As far as, so you have TEXAN on Ethereum and Pulse, correct?
We do. Yes.
Okay. So can you tell me what the main liquidity bonding is on both sides?
Yeah, so on the Pulse chain side, it is wrapped Pulse and TEXAN. Okay, so the market chose that. On the Ethereum side, it is USDC and TEXAN. Those are the primary. And then there's probably, 4 or 5 offshoots on each side, just between, wrapped ETH and Hex. And I think somebody created a Hedron TEXAN pair at one point, and the same thing with Pulse. There's a lot of different pairings there.
Okay. So where does the yield come from exactly?
Yeah, so the yield comes from the contract. Okay, so it's similar to Hex and it's similar to Bitcoin. Where Bitcoin you have to mine to unlock that inflation. So that's how more Bitcoin is released into the ecosystem. With Hex, you're staking and you're trying to provide stability for price by staking. And by doing that, you get T shares. And at the end of your stake, depending on how many T shares you have and depending on how much of the pool that you have percentage-wise will depend on how much of the yearly inflation that you receive. With TEXAN, it's a 5% base interest rate that the contract's going to calculate and pay out for you at the end. So it'll say, okay, you stake 5 years, 5 times 5 is 25. And then it's also going to add in those multipliers, those yearly multipliers that simulate compounding interest. So at the end, the contract's going to say, okay, yeah, this amount that you've got principal plus rewards, we'll go ahead and give them the rewards and the principal back. And it mints that from the available supply that it keeps track of in the smart contract.
Okay, so if I got this right, I know earlier you said it is over time, TEXAN will become deflationary, but the yield is made through an inflationary process?
Yeah, so there's, I guess, people use words for that. So disinflationary, so it inflates up to a point and then it deflates, or however you want to say it. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yep.
I like it. Anybody have any questions they want to add towards TEXAN? Okay. All right. Well, we'll go to the next.
I saw Brendan come on. Brendan, do you have a question? You could go before.
Take it away, Jay.
Okay. So this kind of relates to something that Rags was talking about earlier when he's talking about the tokenization process of anything and everything, right? I can understand the utility of tokenizing something, like, for example, real estate. Brendan mentioned it earlier, right? Because for a lot of folks, the barrier of entry for real estate is extremely high, right? Mm-hmm. So I can understand the utility and the value of tokenizing something like real estate. But when you say that you wanted to tokenize quite a lot of things, how do you pitch tokenization of everything to these companies, and how, like, can you give us a few examples of the utility that you present with tokenization and the different companies that you pitch TEXAN to?
Sure. So let me think here real quick. I want to make sure that I approach this from the correct angle. I've thought about this before, and Matt talked about this as well. So think about in the past when you had these mining towns, right? And what you would do, you would actually get paid out in company token or company paper. It wouldn't actually be, it wouldn't be US dollars, for example. It wouldn't be some type of country currency. So you were able to basically take those and you make everybody sticky to this thing in that town where they only use your thing and they transact in that thing only. The same thing's going to happen when, and think about this. Think about like a cell phone provider. Why do you guys think, somebody answer this question, why do you guys think that they have lease agreements on cell phones? When I want to remind you that they had 2-year contracts, you used to be able to get these things for free or maybe $99 or $100 or $200. Why do they have finance agreements on these now?
Probably have contracts, so or you've been done paying off the first phone, a new one comes out, then you have to finance a new one, and you're paying on the old one and the new at the same time. I could be wrong. I don't know. Anybody else?
I mean, that's partially correct. Yeah.
Yep, that's the angle that I was going to take as well.
So think about this.
You need people to stick around. Ultimately, you know.
Exactly, it makes them sticky. Demand. Yeah, it makes them sticky, right? So what they're actually doing is they're selling you the data plan. They're using the phone to make you sticky. All right.
Just that, so you keep paying on it.
So you're using their thing in their ecosystem. Everything that you get is inside their ecosystem. It makes you sticky. Stickiness is it's a business fundamental. How do we make customers sticky to us and not jump ship somewhere else? So if I go to enterprise level person, I say, all right, let's do this. Let's tokenize. And then you know what? You have this robust rewards program for all of your employees. How about now they can buy, sell, trade anything with your XYZ token that we just created. And then maybe that they get some sort of bonus, and maybe there's some sort of positive tax implications for doing this. And so, we haven't gone outside the realm of pitching this to nonprofits, but I'll tell you how we talk to nonprofits about this. Imagine that, for example, you've got a nonprofit that wants to end pet hunger or animal hunger across the world. All right. So you guys have seen those infomercials late at night, and those damn dog eyes, and they got fleas in them, and the dogs are crying, and it's either the really stoned people at 3 a.m. or it's the grandmas that wake up at 3 a.m. that are watching this. All right. Yeah. So both sides are crying at the end of the damn thing. So they say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and call this number. I'm going to give them my credit card, and they're going to take $10 out for the rest of my life. And I'm not going to see where the money goes at all. Okay. Not going to see where it goes. Don't know. What's the other way to do this? What if you tokenized and people had a way to go purchase this token? Now you have skin in the game and you're helping the organization. You were already going to set up a $10 debit per month forever and never see the money or the results of that money ever again. What if you could raise money this way? Okay, so this is the type of thing that we want people to see. We want people to see what the possibilities are. And imagine this. Imagine that you have a fan base of people that are supporting your organization. Are they going to be more likely to sell that token or less likely to sell that token? They're going to be less likely. Why? Because they're killing dogs when they sell that token. You see what I mean? Makes them sticky. So you can take that general notion and general idea, and no matter what industry, no matter what nonprofit, it doesn't take too much mental gymnastics to be able to apply it to those different situations. And I wanted to give you guys those examples.
No, that's a fantastic example, especially when you talk about the charity aspect of it, right? For the nonprofit, because like you mentioned, when you donate money to something like this, like let's say the Sad Dog organization, you don't really see you don't see the journey of that money and how that impacts maybe that specific cause or community, right? But if it's token, it's like you're several degrees removed, but in this case, you're a lot more connected to it than you would have been otherwise. So that's actually a pretty good example.
So, sorry. No. You go ahead, Jeff. You go ahead.
No, I'm muting my mic.
Something that I actually wanted to ask here was in Pulse Chain. Sorry, if you could bring that comment up again. Pulse Chain is the perfect playground and future financial tool.
With my kinetics, yeah, that's it.
I think that right there very well describes kind of what I'm seeing you doing right now with the TEXAN token, which is ultimately kind of like you're creating something that you're going to be sort of moving on and layering into the future when it comes to just like different things. Right now, it's kind of like you're doing like corporate type gigs, right? Versus where you kind of seems like you want to start moving is trying into something like nonprofits and stuff like that. Am I kind of hitting the nail on the head here?
Yeah, Yeah. So we believe in as many doors as possible being open, and we believe in seeding the world with the blockchain, giving the gift of the blockchain, not to just some people who are extremely well off in Europe or extremely well off in the United States, but also people that aren't well off in really, really poor areas of the world. I'm going to point out something that happened very recently. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, we launched Ophir. Okay, so this was our second iteration. Ophir is a community in the Philippines, a community of churches. It's about 100 primary churches. And what they did, they created endowments for each church. And they're going to give these endowments pre-created to the church. And they're going to talk about Ophir crypto. Ophir is the cryptocurrency. They'll talk about it in the Philippines. And the idea here is, if you give this gift and people realize what is possible with this thing, and it's done in such a way that is, quite frankly, pleasing to your creator, it's done morally properly and ethically properly, some really, really good things can happen. And this is a long-term game. This is not like a Pepe or a Doge. We're not a pump and dump type thing. We've got our time horizon set on decades, 20 years, man, 20, 30, 40 years. We're going to be here forever. And everywhere that we can seed these contracts with existing organizations, they've already been established for years already. They've been in business. They've been doing their thing. I think that this is the best way to keep a cryptocurrency, an actual contract, alive, by bootstrapping it to no coiners in organizations in the real world that already exist.
See, I 100% agree with that, and that's something that I've been looking kind of deeply into. But being a realist and all that, right?
Yeah.
Is that something that you think is going to be possible in 20 years? Because you can already see, and I know we're kind of like the whole "I fight you" stage, right? And then you win eventually. But it's kind of like when we do ultimately win, there's going to be a lot of regulations. There's going to be a lot of things that are sort of keeping you from actually creating what it is you want to create, or at least in the style of the way you want to create it. And you're going to end up running into walls, right? And you're going to have to try and get past these walls or find like a little loophole or something like that to ultimately make what it is that you think is going to like advance humanity forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the folks in Japan, if they knew that the bomb was going to be dropped on their city, would that stop them from creating a life for themselves, or stop them from creating homes and businesses and things like that? No, it wouldn't have. The fact that bad things can happen in the future, the fact that things can be derailed, is not going to stop me from trying my hardest to do what I can do, because I'm not a prophet and I can't see the future. But what I can try to do is create the world that I want to see. And there might be powers that are stronger than me that can physically wipe that off, but they can't wipe that off from here, or they can't wipe that out from here. So, to answer your question, I know that was like really super philosophical, but at the same time, I think it's very applicable. I'm not going to stop trying to take the proper steps to make the world a better place now because I'm afraid of the future. That's tough. And to be quite honest, I don't think you're the type of person that does that, but a lot of people think that way. They say, "Oh, why am I doing this? It's not worth it. They're just going to wipe it out anyway." And again, I don't think you guys are like that, but they're just going to wipe it out. It's not worth it. Let me just live my life. Let me just fly under the radar and see what happens. But what happens to those people who do take risks? How many lives can I affect positively? And coming from a crypto bro, that sounds super cheesy, right? But I'm pretty sure that you guys, well, I think that you guys understand that I'm not promising that we're going to be wealthy, but what I am doing is my part in how I think that we can shape the world moving forward. And I promise you, we are changing the trajectory of the world in some small way right now. I assure you. So
that is for sure. Actually, before I got to where I am now, right, with actual knowledge of crypto, I was just exit liquidity, chasing meme pumps, right? And that didn't work out very well. Lost quite a bit of money, 5 figures. And then I said, hey, I'm just going to go into business. But since I was 20 years old, a full decade now, I've been trying to make a life for me and what would be my future family to be able to survive, right? And then all of a sudden, like, wait a minute, now that I'm diving very, very, very deep into crypto and I'm learning a whole lot, and I know that I can make money this way now. What I'm trying to do is get my family to a place where, you know, they can live comfortably enough. I can be technically retired myself, but I'm never going to be retired. Truthfully, I'm just trying to get away from a 9-to-5 where I'm working for somebody else who's just trying to get profit. And instead, what I want to do is I want to go invent and create a lot of other things to improve everything else in life. This has been my philosophy for a while now. And I literally work 12s just about every single day just to try and I've been doing this for years now, just to achieve that. So no, I feel that, man.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's not, you know the old saying that goes, there's only two things certain in life. It's death and taxes, right? It's not very difficult. It doesn't take a lot of effort for you to identify a space and time where it's going to suck, right? I think that's an inevitability. But I am very much on the side of your point of view, Rags, in that I realize the inevitability of that scenario, right? We're like a few steps away from total disaster, right? But that's not going to stop me from creating a life that's not only valuable for myself, but also valuable for my family, right? My friends and my family, the people that I take care of and care for. But, you know, maybe if I do that job good enough, I can expend some of that energy and some of that resource to the broader community, right? And I think that's precisely the right state of mind to adopt, because I can guarantee you right now, you can adopt the nihilistic point of view, like you were saying, right? That like it doesn't matter what's going to happen today, what's going to happen tomorrow, because it's all going to end anyway. That's not going to be a very fun, like 50 years. If you're like a 20-year-old, that's not going to be a very fun 50 years of your life if you adopt that kind of mindset. So no, I don't think it's cheesy at all. I think it's exactly the right mindset to adopt.
That's not who we are, man. We have a spark inside of us as human beings that wants to go out and make things better. For the most part, there's some psychopaths and sociopaths out there, and sometimes they even make the world better on accident. But I'm talking about, like, when we see this younger generation, like you said, adopting that nihilistic point of view, it's a big red flag to us. And I think it's a call to action to be able to step up to the plate and say there's life worth living, and there's ways that we can help make the world better. And people always say, oh, I'm going to make the world better, and all the pageant people say, oh, world peace and blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's fine. But what's cool is we now have the technology to be able to do this at an individual level. So we can take the blockchain and we can actually put our money where our mouth is, and we can go gift this all over the world. And even if one organization figured it out and understood it and really adopted it and took the bull by the horn, so to speak, it would be worth it, because it would affect so many lives there. So we're very, very, I guess we're very fortunate to be alive at a time where technology and the ability to help other people have intersected so well.
No, that's a good point. Even when you were talking, you had me thinking that, let's say something like DeFi could actually take over, and then the corrupt centralized banks no longer had a purpose, and they didn't have to play with unemployment rates. Because I saw you on your stream the other day, something about every 1% that unemployment increases, 40,000 people die.
Yeah,
as a result.
Yeah, so the
that's
Feds,
that's crazy, and they're doing it on purpose just to make money and control the game.
They're controlling the game, man. It's disgusting, and they're all in on it. And the reporters, you listen to these Federal Reserve meetings, and these just parrot reporters, these sheep in the front row, looking all pretty with ties all tied up and prim and proper, and they got their heels on, and they're raising their hand, these prefab questions to Jerome Powell. And the American people are completely in the dark about the amount of damage that they have done and continue to do. It's disgusting.
That's where they want you to look. That's why they got the people with the prequel questions all dolled up, and it's look over here while I'm really over here doing this. It's crazy, just like you were saying. But you can take risks, and a lot of the greatest people have taken risks to make the place a better world. Like imagine, musicians and Starbucks and these places. I don't know if Starbucks is a good example, but you know the story. He went to banks over and over until he got approved. They've also had a lot of bad people take risks and a lot of bad things come out of it. But I feel like now you actually have a chance to help a lot of people. Generally help a lot of people with technology, save people. Literally, imagine living in Argentina and your grandpa, who was a bricklayer, worked 40 years and he saved up $100,000. And within the next year, inflation went up 90%, and that $100,000 is worth $10K. He worked his whole life so you could buy a Honda Civic.
Yep. Imagine that, and that happens. The Argentine peso, and I mean, guys, it's crazy.
What I find crazy is that, like the most crazy part about that is, at least to me, like you're talking about how it's all like puppeted and all that, right? Mm-hmm. And I know that one thing is very obvious is, like, say with the Fed, they're always like, oh, the jobs are too high right now, right? We got to start getting more unemployment going, right? It's like, so you want people to lose their livelihoods. That's what you're purposely doing. And it kind of concerns me. And it's like, my question is, even though we know, like, the banks are really, for the most part, controlling everything, and they're really they're just keeping us all under lockdown, right? Yeah. How are you able to escape that cage, that fence? Like, we the people, so to say, when we're finally like, we don't want to be part of this system anymore, aside from just burning it all down, how else can you see that we could get out of that?
You got to study history to figure out how people got out of it in the past. And I'm here to tell you guys, it's not pretty. And the reason it's not pretty is because human beings move mountains based on two things. They move mountains based on pain, and they move mountains based on pleasure. How much pain is society willing to take before they say enough is enough? If you're really, really lucky, you get a leader that can turn things around without massive amounts of violence. And again, I'm not calling for massive amounts of violence. I'm saying that I'm a student of history. And when the money gets weird, society gets weird really, really quick. I think for the first time in many, many decades, there's not many people alive that could speak to this, but for the first time, people are starting to, it's kind of like, I use this all the time in my streams, Inception. It's like everybody, you're in a dream and your dream's going just fine. And if you watch the movie, you got these people that get in the dream, and as long as they act cool and don't act out of the ordinary, nobody sees anything. They just keep going about their day. The subconscious keeps doing what it's doing. But people are starting to wake up, and people see, okay, that's kind of off, and the subconscious is staring at it. And we have a societal subconscious now, and we're starting to catch wind. Something is weird. Now, from the point that society starts catching on to the point at which real change occurs, sometimes it can take hundreds of years. Other times it can only take a couple decades. And the thing that's going to usher this even more is this horrible economic policy that they have, which ultimately is leading us towards massive destruction. There's no other way to put it. You go into debt, you have a deficit, and then you debase the currency in print. And eventually, all the tools that you had to try to control the fallout, those tools become less and less potent, and until you have the bubble of all bubbles, and everybody expects the Fed to step in, but there's no tools that are going to be able to neutralize the problem because they've used them too much. The inflation is too high. There's too much circulating. The economy wants to take off, but if the economy takes off, you have too many dollars chasing the same amount of goods, and prices go sky high. Hyperinflation, stagflation. It's bad. So to answer your question, one of the things that you can do, and this is a question that you get now, mind you guys, I've said this plenty of times too. I barely graduated high school and I hated college. Okay. So take what I say with an absolute grain of salt here. If I had a college kid to come up to me and he says, "Hey, Rags, what should I study?" I'm going to tell you, what you want to study, you need to study something to do with economics, whether it's accounting or economics or finance. Why? The closer you can get to that fire hose of inflation, the better off that you're going to be and the more money that you're going to make. And it's the system that we're playing in right now. Okay. And if you want to take part in that and use that and try to make a change or make money so you can change the world somehow or affect that in a positive way, that's what you need to start looking at, in my opinion.
Or the craziest thing about that whole conversation there that Jeff started is that he thought that Grandpa could buy a Civic with 10K, bro.
I'm in Argentina in like a 1992 Civic. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to off the streets right now. What a Civic's got to be like 45 grand, Brandon?
Probably. It's crazy, dude.
I remember my grandpa bought one probably 15 years ago. I think it was like 20 grand.
Dude, was it the old Civics like in the 80s and 90s? Were those like the hatchback Civics?
Hatchback,
Civics, right?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I saw one of those and I was like, dude, I want one of those, man. I don't know what it is. They look like they can fly.
I used to want the old box style Mustangs back in the day. I think it was like a 91.
Me too.
92. Yeah,
me too. 86 through 92, anywhere in there.
My brother grew up, doing all kind of illegal racing and getting in trouble. And he had, I remember his last car, his last Mustang was a 95 Mustang GT, the last year at 5.0, until they recently brought it back.
Nice. Yeah, I love those old cars. That
awesome.
Blacked out car on training day with Denzel Washington. Oh,
yeah,
that's dirty, man. That's nasty.
Brendan, you had something you wanted to add, bud?
Yeah. So, Rags, you're talking about when the Fed uses tools too often. Jerome Powell recently, a couple times ago after he spoke, and someone asked him a question after his little speech, and they said, well, what about the government printing money? And he was like, well, that's not my job. I don't make fiscal policy. But he said something very interesting. He essentially said he only has the tools that he has. And if the Fed continues to print money, then there's nothing that he's going to be able to do to keep inflation at a level that is sustainable and where we want it to be, which is 2%. So if we're continuing to print money and send money all over the world to all these different topics, I'm not saying, sending money to Ukraine is bad. I'm just saying if we continue to print money, COVID, Ukraine, you name it, billions, trillions of dollars, the Fed the Fed has no control anymore, correct?
Correct. And that's a rare occurrence of him being brutally honest. If he said that, I didn't hear that.
He didn't.
Oh, he did.
He read, but if you listen to what he said,
inflection.
It's what he was trying to say.
So here's I actually talked about this. I think it was today or yesterday, and I said 2% inflation, guys. That's not going to be around for much longer. The new baseline is going to be probably 3 to 4%. Don't doubt me on that. That's going to happen. And it's completely true, kind of what you said. It's like, okay, think about it this way. The amount of damage that the Federal Reserve has done to the economy in previous years, the amount of pressure, rather, that the Federal Reserve has put on the economy currently, in previous recessions, it would have sent us to the dark ages. Now, that's kind of scary to think about. It's almost like it's almost like this is a virus. Okay, and the virus mutates, and the new medication that we give to the virus, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger and fights back. So we have to have bigger and better strains. But ultimately, there's a hard cap on what technology can do, and you just have to let the process play out by itself. You're just what conflict delayed is conflict multiplied, and we're pushing this down the road until eventually there's not going to be anything to do to stop it. So. And we could talk about all the tools that they use to do that, the Fed funds rate and buying and selling bonds, and then quantitative easing, quantitative tightening, and all sorts of things. Like, they only have a handful of tricks, and they're becoming less and less effective.
If you want to stop inflation, you have to become deflationary, right? You have to burn tokens or burn currency. So if we're going to keep printing the US dollar, we're going to continue to be inflationary. They literally have to find a way to remove dollars from. Well,
there's another way to do it. There's actually there's two other ways to do it. The other way to do it is to massively increase GDP, because if you can increase production, and if there's actually demand there's a demand that meets the amount of money supply, or the demand for goods and services, then you're going to see inflation decrease. You're not going to see these goods and services sky high. You'll actually see it's not deflationary per se, but because you're still divvying out inflation, but it's going to, the levels are going to kind of correct themselves. That's one way to do it. And then the other way to do it, which is the hardest way to do it, which is you'll never see anybody do it. Politicians have to stand up there and say, hey, we got to cut Medicare. Hey, we got to cut Medicaid. Hey, we got to cut the national defense budget. Hey, we got to cut foreign aid. Hey, we got to cut this to NATO. Like, cutting is the scariest thing in the world to a politician, because saying those words is absolute political suicide, right? And quite frankly, like, people will get assassinated if you take away their damn welfare checks and all sorts of things. And I'm not blaming the people that have welfare checks. This was something that the government created that said that it could be sustainable and it could be safe for society. And it's obviously not. They won't go that route. So increase production huge, GDP, or print more money.
I really like that virus analogy. I used to study a little bit of medicine, and I'm a firm believer, or maybe I'm out of my mind, but as far as you were saying, eventually the virus just keeps building an immunity and eventually it's going to take over. I have this theory that one day that all bacteria is just going to be basically immune to everything and just take over the world. Just a little rant that I was taking off your analogy.
Yeah, you hope the technology outpaces nature. You hope
exactly. But it always finds a way to correct itself, I feel like.
It will. There's gaps and there's holes, and it's just like, okay, what are you going to do? You going to raise the federal funds rate to 10% next bubble, or 15 or 20% or 30% or 40%? And you make it absolutely impossible for somebody to get a mortgage or a car loan or a business loan just so, I mean, God, guys, it gets me fired up just to think about this. Think about all those trillions of dollars that went to universities. All right, think about this too. Think about a school right now, a university, college university near you, okay? And if you've been to that university more than one time in the past 10 years, is that university bigger or the same size than it was 10 years ago?
Absolutely. No version of that is better. Nothing about the university is better. All of that money that they're sending is going to administrative purposes. Nothing to improve the students' lives, their learning capacity, or the faculties of the actual university. It's all overhead for the administration.
We can get into that.
Yeah.
I'm unapologetic about my political views. However, I will be respectful of that on your channel, but I completely agree about the administrative aspect of it. And they're turning these things into giant padded daycares at an exorbitant cost.
100.
And when this money goes out because people are hurting, what do the healthcare companies do? What do the universities do? What do these state, local, federal agencies do? What do these unions do? They get kickbacks from these political entities. They hoard the cash. The government never asks for that money back. Does that sound crazy to you? Hey, I'm going to help you out. Use the money that you need, but when this is all over, hand it back. Meanwhile, what's happening? You're seeing a dissection of the middle class. You're seeing that redistribution that we've been talking about for 20 or 30 years, and everybody thought you were crazy. We're seeing that by means of inflation divvied out to people, and then people spend that money with Wall Street, spend that money with universities, this and that, and it's actually passed through. It's kind of like money laundering from the government to Wall Street, from the government to healthcare companies, from the government to colleges and universities, and then the government never asks for the money back. And everybody gets rich and fat except for the middle class. Meanwhile, the government's making all the wrong decisions with people's money. Taxation goes up. The indirect taxation, the shadow taxation of inflation destroys the middle classes too. 401ks get destroyed. People that wanted to retire 5 years ago can't, and then 2 years later they die. They couldn't even enjoy it. So it's like we are doing all the things that we're supposed to do, and they're not upholding their end of the bargain here. What needs to change? Well, this is what happens. Cryptocurrency happens when things need to change, as evidenced by the Satoshi white paper in 2008 because of the subprime mortgage crisis. I mean, this is there's a vacuum there. So,
yeah, Rex, a couple of things that you touched on there. First of all, you know, the universities very much like government agencies. Every time they get a grant or every time they get money, if they don't spend all of that money, they get less next time. And so they are incentivized to overspend, even if they don't need to, constantly. Be it pad somebody's pockets, be it pay for a contractor that really isn't doing any work. And there's just so much fluff and meat and potatoes in the system because there's so much inconsistencies that have been built over essentially, you know, hundreds of years, that it's really hard to break that down and make it efficient again. And so, like you're talking about, cryptocurrency has an opportunity to sort of change the system a little bit and bring us back to a place where it's not just one person controlling the whole thing.
The sad part about this, well, there's a good part and a bad part. It only took about a decade for traditional finance to take over cryptocurrency. That's the sad part, and that's a massive reality. 95% of cryptocurrency is now compromised. Well, what's your evidence for that, Rags? Okay. Who remembers Michael Saylor? Okay, Michael Saylor has been on the campaign stumping for Bitcoin for who knows how long. And I'll admit, I'm listening to what he has to say, and I'm like, man, that makes a whole lot of sense. MicroStrategy buys 20,000 Bitcoin, and they buy 40,000, and then they get loans out on all of their assets, and then they buy 70,000, 80,000, 100,000 Bitcoin, 130,000. Now they're up to like 150,000 Bitcoin, I think, or 160 as of 3 weeks ago. 160,000 Bitcoin. Okay, well, Rags, like, you're not connecting the dots here. Why do you say that Bitcoin's compromised? Well, it's on Wall Street. Guess who owns 10% of MicroStrategy? BlackRock. Okay. Guess who's in bed with the United States government? BlackRock. Guess what else? Michael Saylor went on this huge campaign to convince CEOs of Fortune 500 companies to add at least 5 to 10% of their balance sheets to Bitcoin. Who owns 75 to 80% of all the Fortune 500 companies? It's freaking BlackRock. BlackRock, Larry Fink comes out, what was this, 45 days ago? And he says, cryptocurrency is the future. We're going to the moon. We're going to the stars. And it pumped. And then the biggest dump of the year occurred. That was the local top for 2023. The day that Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, came out there and said that. They are using us as exit liquidity. It's nothing new. We are the peons. We're the little shrimps that are biting this, and they're extracting money from us. BlackRock does not exist for altruistic reasons. It exists to make profit, and it just so happens that they're off the rails. Okay, there's no rules and no regulations. They run the show. They run the world, man. I mean, how many trillions of dollars of assets under management do they control, or control by default or control by proxy? So Bitcoin, it used to be a retail type thing. It used to be a grassroots thing. They have now taken the traditional finance system and they have integrated it with Bitcoin. And now you have things like Coinbase, which is a publicly traded company. It's an exchange. And this whole fight with the SEC, it's BS. Just like the whole fight with XRP was BS. Because now that XRP is off the hook, guess what? They're the network of choice for half of the world for the CBDCs. You know, the Federal Reserve is pushing these out. They're going to use Ripple. It was planned the entire time. And people say you're a conspiracy theorist. I'm like, dude, I would have called me a conspiracy theorist before, but guys, thank God for cryptocurrency, because I've been able to do nonstop research every single day of my life for the past 5 years, and what I have found blows my freaking mind, dude. Blows my mind. There are small bastions of freedom left. Pulse Chain is one of those. Pulse Chain doesn't have VC money that's injected. Yes, we have our hiccups. Yes, it's going to be slower to develop. But you know what this actually represents? It's probably the freest and truest market that exist in cryptocurrency right now. And I'm not making that up. You don't have these people that have massive controlling interests. Sure, you have whales and things like that, but you don't have to answer to VCs. You don't have to answer to boardrooms. You don't have to do that. You don't have to fall under their purview. So this is grassroots. This is done by Hexicans, quite frankly, that made quite a bit of money. And they took a lot of that money, not only, I think, Richard himself, obviously, but also Hexicans, and they invested this in the Pulse Chain. And Pulse Chain is being built out very naturally right now. I like the fact that Richard Hart does not want to play ball with the government. I like the fact that he pushes back. And a lot of people don't like his tactics. Quite frankly, there are many times where I didn't like his tactics either. But what I do like is the fact that it doesn't seem like he's a pushover. It doesn't seem like he's playing ball with the wrong people. And that's what's important to me.
A lot of good
You
points.
know, it's quite interesting when you think about all that you've just said right there.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that it's getting more and more obvious as we go along, right?
Yes.
But the further into the details you look, the more you're just like, okay. And this is the way that I've always described it, right? They're slowly building a fence around you, right? You can see that they're building it, but you're kind of still playing the game, and it all comes down to when do you try to escape that? One thing that I've always said about the Hexican community that specifically makes me very bullish on Pulse Chain and all that is that we're, as Hexicans, right, we're always going to be constantly, bullied, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's always like we're in the wrong, but yet whenever we're not allowed to do something, we just make our own.
Correct. It's beautiful.
And that's the thing. That's the thing that's really gotten me extremely bullish, because it's like that there is no controlling, and you can only get this particular thing if you go along with what it is we're already building over here. You know, saying like BlackRock, right? It's like the Hexicans would just be like, oh, okay, cool, bro, and then we go make our own, right?
It's
all of a sudden there's a lot of them.
It's a symptom of our. I think we're all about the same age here on stream. I don't know. I've tried to think about this in depth. I put a lot of thought into this, and I can't figure it out. People our age have grown up thinking that we have to wait for somebody else to do something for us. And some people would say, well, that's always been the case. But no, I don't think it's always been the case. Because I've as an adult, I see some of the people that I grew up around me, and they're the same way. They're like, well, I'm going to go call somebody to mow my lawn for me, where they could just go out and mow their own lawn. Or I'm not going to learn this. I'm just going to pay somebody to go learn this. Or, government, I'm not going to do this. It's your responsibility to do this for me. The individualism has been kind of stripped from us. And the thing that I like about this community is we have so many people who just say, okay, I'm not going to fight for the scraps from your table. It's not something that I'm going to do. I'm going to go out, I'm going to build my own damn thing, and screw you. I don't have to participate in the craziness that's happening out there in the world. And I'm so glad that you brought that point up, because we would have missed it otherwise. I wouldn't have thought about that. But dude, yes, that is so important, man. That's why I love this community. And it's so many people that have that mind. It's like it's a magnet. So many people in the same place. We don't wait for permission. We just go freaking do it. And that's what we need to do.
The other aspect I would like to add on to that too is if you look at something like, say, Monero, right? Mm-hmm. Monero is decentralized and like private the way that, they always wanted Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies to be. And here's the thing that Monero is doing that I think is incorrect comparative to the Hexican, right? Monero is sitting there stagnant. This is us. This is the true way to do it, and then they're not moving forward. I'm sorry, but in life, if you're not moving forward, you're technically going backwards. You need to always have some kind of forward momentum. And I'm telling you what, there's not forward momentum with Hexicans. There is there's light speed straight ahead, like they're running forward as fast as possible. And I really do appreciate that, and that's why I'm so bullish on them. I think it works.
Yeah. The book Now, some of you guys might have read this, and you've heard about this, I'm sure, on YouTube Shorts or from somebody. The 48 Laws of Power. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're trying to vie for power is they open their mouth and they try to go to war too soon. And they try to dig in and stay put way too soon. With Monero, it might be interesting if they just continued to develop and continued to stay under the radar until there's something that happens that's really special. Eventually, if you make something good, it's going to market itself. You don't even have to you don't have to go out there and spend thousands and hundreds of millions of dollars to go out and buy ads and tell people about this cool thing. If you build something, they will come, man. I mean, it's so true. It's the best movie ever, but it's so true. So maybe Monero is suffering from that. Maybe they think that they can stay put, stay stagnant. They're going to dig their heels in and they're going to conquer. And I don't think that's the way to go. But you keep pushing, you keep building not only community, but also technological infrastructure. And eventually you're going to make it a place where people can't say no.
Good stuff. Well, I know y'all were talking about BlackRock, and I have no idea if this is true. I was just scanning through YouTube earlier. Do you watch Crypto Banter, his channel, or no?
Maybe once every couple of weeks, I'll tune in to see what he has to say.
Okay. He had a little thumbnail today talking about possibly the Bitcoin ETF has already been approved, that he found some leaked information that the approval's already done and they're just waiting to announce it at the next hearing or something like that. Did you hear anything about that?
I didn't catch wind of that. No.
Okay.
Do I believe it? I believe that. Like, do you guys know who Gary Gensler is? Gary Gensler's a Wall Street guy. And what's surprising to me is there's actually no rules, laws, or regulations against the intermingling of Wall Street and the government sector, especially with regards to regulating finance, which is crazy to me, but we could talk about that. Gary Gensler is a Goldman Sachs guy. Gary Gensler has been extremely involved in all levels of politics, especially in the financial side, Democrat Party, this and that. Elizabeth Warren and him, they're buddies. I think that the Democrat Party, one of their downfalls is they like to tell people what to do with their money. Okay, so they don't leave that choice up to the people. I think to be fair, one of the problems with Republicans is they like to tell people what to do with their lives, okay, more than they should. I guess I have a very libertarian view on that. But with regards to who's actually in power right now, which is the Democrats, left-leaning, it's quite obvious that the Keynesian ideas, in a way, it's like a European socialism type of ideas that permeate through the Democratic Party now that come from the universities. They want to pick and choose who the winners and losers are. You saw a massive shakeout. You see a lot of banks that failed at the local level. You saw a lot of banks that also failed at the regional level over the past 24 months or so. So what's the reason for the SEC holding off on these ETFs getting approved? I think that they are by enforcement destroying the people that they don't want to have these ETFs. The big 6, the big 7, the big 8 banks in the world, in the United States specifically, these are the guys they're gonna because they're playing ball and because they are working with the government and because they are yes men, so to speak, they're going to be the first people at the table. I think that this is a coordinated effort by those big banks to destroy competition via means of government enforcement. That's been my idea for a while.
So do you think they're purposely manipulating the price so these bigger entities like themselves, BlackRock, can buy more, or you think that has nothing to do with it?
I definitely think there's massive amounts of fraud and manipulation in Bitcoin, first and foremost. But I think they're more so doing this legislatively. So they're bringing these entities to court to drain them financially and drain them reputationally. And once all that damage has been done, then they're going to go ahead and approve these spot ETFs. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, bro.
Max, you said a couple things, and you kind of glossed over it, but we've talked a few times on this show, about the SEC, about Gary Gensler, about how he and other government agencies. It's also very interesting, right? So the SEC, right? A lot of people that work in the SEC come from, like you said, the financial market, companies that are lobbying politicians. Interesting that his position's appointed, so he comes from Goldman Sachs, right? Pays money to politicians, lobbies them, and then gets a prime position in the SEC, and then decides that he wants to control everything. Okay, this is a commodity. This is a commodity. Everything's a commodity. I'm sorry, everything's a security. This is security. That's a security. Everything's a security. And he's continually stepping his bounds. And one of the only saving graces we currently have at the moment is that the court system is actually looking at the law and applying securities law to actual things that are happening. And if we were to lose that, if we were to lose the court system actually making decisions that make sense once in a while, who knows where we'd be right now. But it's very corrupt that someone can go from as a lobbyist, give a politician money, and then get chosen as a head of a government agency that literally runs the government money.
Yeah, and I find myself trying to stay away from talking about that sort of thing because I'm not part of that world. Every piece of information that I've gotten from people who are just basically say what you say, and it's like 100 times worse, right? These are unelected bureaucrats. That's the word that we're looking for here. Unelected bureaucrats. And they can go in by different means, and they can control how we live our lives, or they can control us financially. These are appointed by the executive branch. I think Gensler's term's up in 2025, January 2025.
He won't make it.
He won't make it. Either the president's going to appoint somebody new, or Janet Yellen dies and he becomes Treasury Secretary. That's my idea about it. But yeah, it's screwed up, man. It's a problem. These are the sorts of things that need to be fixed. The people want it fixed. But I mean, for lack of a better word, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you can't deny that Washington is an absolute swamp. Okay. It's an absolute swamp. So, I mean, what are we going to do until it just gets so bad that people finally start waking up?
Yeah, and I'm not saying one side or the other is better.
Oh, no.
Both sides have problems,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's what people really need to wake up and see.
Yep, I agree.
That they're just fighting each other to see who's in control to make more problems for the people.
Well, the people are the ones who suffer. Okay, that's the real issue.
Certainly. And for me, I don't want to keep talking. So somebody else talking, but I do want to say something. You talked about, essentially giving back, allowing the world to become a better place. And, on our show, I know Agent J says, if Agent J makes, what's he going to do with his crypto money? He's going to help his family. He's going to help people. I'm in the middle of hoping in the near future to start a nonprofit, and for us, crypto is an opportunity that allows you to create freedom to do other things that can potentially help people. Now, being rich doesn't make you happy. Having time and what you do with that time can potentially make you happy. But I just want to also reiterate to people that you have to find happiness within yourself. You have to be mentally, physically, spiritually in a place that allows you to be healthy. And no matter how free you are, unless you can get yourself personally to that place. And that's what we want to help people do.
Well, you make a good point, man. And the problem with cryptocurrency these days is the fact that there are big companies out there, and then there's all sorts of other folks, developers, small-time developers, that create these things called smart contracts, and then they feed on your greed. And that's how they extract value from you. One of my philosophies here is I'm not going to focus on the monetary aspect of cryptocurrency. What I'm going to focus on is the community building aspect. A lot of times in life, if you focus on one action, everything else takes care of itself. So if I focus on treating people like human beings, if I focus on helping educate people, because I think education is the most important part. I think that, for example, a lot of the stuff that you guys have said here today, most people don't know about. So maybe it's our purpose. Maybe that's why you have this channel, to go and help educate people and talk about what's important. So if we can do those things and we can make people better, then it's going to make the world better, because there's a multiplier effect. Okay. It's a compounding. It's a force multiplier. Because if I'm doing good things for the world and I can teach somebody else how to do good things for the world, then they're going to do it, and it's just going to spread out that way. So I don't think about cryptocurrency in terms of being rich. I think about cryptocurrency in terms of tokenizing relationships, tokenizing the social aspect, tokenizing communities. And I think everything else takes care of itself.
You know, you bring up a good point there, and something that I kind of want to hit on is that you talk about, you know, it's not about getting rich or whatever. It's all about trying to help out communities and all that. The thing that I'm kind of interested in is, yes, I want to get rich, but here's the way I would rather put it. I want to buy my time back, because if I can buy my time back, I can use that time to go fulfill myself and, you know, make happiness for myself, which is ultimately going to be helping others along, right? Helping others create and have better lives themselves. I got a better life. I can help you get a better life. That's ultimately the way that I kind of see it, right? And you can't help anyone until you help yourself first, right?
And that's a beautiful thing. That's what crypto is. If you get enough people, like you get a college football stadium that has 60 to 100,000 people on a Saturday. You get that amount of people in a stadium to buy in to whatever your thing is. And by buy in, I don't mean literally buy in. I mean emotionally, psychologically buy into this. And maybe you're under the umbrella of some type of idea, organization, moral stance, something like that. When you guys all kind of come together, the financial thing takes care of itself. If 60,000 people are participating in this thing, then everybody's going to win. And for the first time in history, that's possible. That's possible because of technology. It's never existed before. People didn't have access to markets unless you were well-to-do, right? And there's filters and walls all over the place. Accredited investors, for example. All right, you can't participate in ICOs. You can't participate in IPOs. There's all sorts of little ideas out there and little problems. You know, and let's talk about the Series 7. Let's talk about even the tests to get close to what I called the inflation earlier. The closer you can get, the richer you're going to be. It's just like the sunlight coming off of it. It's going to make you feel good. And a lot of people can't even get into the Series 7 because they make it so difficult. It's written by lawyers, and they don't want every Joe Schmo to pass, right? And the same thing with real estate licenses. They don't want every Joe Schmo to pass. But what's beautiful about cryptocurrency is there is no wall, okay? Anybody can go and participate. It's the beautiful thing. And if you get enough people to come together and participate in that same thing, you can do really, really cool things for the world. And that's what hypes me up, man. That's what hypes me up. That's what I have my faith in.
Now, I will say, I am definitely in crypto to make a ton of money. Yep. But I look, let me tell you right now that me and Rags actually don't disagree. The way that I make a ton of money in crypto is, so we talked about sales earlier, right? I'm also in sales. I have two sales businesses. And the way that I've been able to create a successful business is because I provide a product and service that people actually value, right?
Yes.
You spoke about earlier that 90% of the people in sales are most likely going to be scammers, right? They're not good faith actors.
No.
But the way that you accumulate that kind of wealth is by providing a value and service that actually provides value to other people, and that's somewhat scalable.
Yes.
Right. And it seems like that's what you're trying to do, like with TEXAN token, right?
Yes.
You're focused on the community building aspect, and then you're also focused on providing value to people within that community. And then the capital just seems to follow, doesn't it?
Correct.
Right. Because you're providing. What's that old quote? You can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of them all of the time.
Right.
Because people are intelligent, right? Despite what the overwhelming majority of folks might think, most of us fundamentally can suss out a scammer or a psychopath. That's why they have to move from place to place so quickly, because people figured them out, right? And so they only last for so long. But the folks like you and like the guys in this channel who are trying to provide a valuable service to our audience, like they're the ones who are going to succeed because they have the staying power, right? Because a lot of people focus on the monetary currency, but they don't realize that trust is also a fundamental currency between people.
So important. It's the most fundamental currency.
Right. And it's a lot more difficult to earn back.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Easy to lose, difficult to earn back.
Yes.
And since a lot of us here are in sales, we all know that trust and the reputation of our business is actually the most important thing in making a lot of money, because people don't come back to you if you don't have their trust. So I just wanted to comment on that because that hit home so hard for me.
So yeah, I like the way that you packaged that. I didn't say it that eloquently, man. And yeah, absolutely, it's a trust thing. If you focus on trust, if you focus on giving value and focus on the people, then everything else takes care of itself. So you go into business to make money, but you don't go into business to screw your customers over. You got to focus on the human. You got to focus on the person. And that is what we're trying to do with TEXAN token. And I'll say this, guys, in the bottom of a bear market, you're not going to get massive amounts of buy-in in an organization when they see a price chart the way that any price chart in crypto looks right now. But I'll tell you one thing, man, that first bull run that hits, and those people get a taste of what is actually possible. And now you have your first generation of people within that organization that their lives have been changed. What do you think that they're going to do? They're going to talk about it. They're going to hype it up. They're going to say this is the best thing since sliced bread. And then they're going to start brainstorming on how they can really make it an integral part of their organization. At least that's how I see it in my twisted ginger head here.
Sure. No, you got a lot of good ideas. Matter of fact, you ever seen V for Vendetta, the movie?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a movie you would like. You kind of give me that libertarian vibe.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was a libertarian until I started seeing how screwed up the world was, and people don't want you to make your own decisions. I don't like that. That's not. I feel like I'm a. Have you guys seen Chronicles of Riddick?
Oh yeah, all of them, multiple times.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm a Furion. Okay, if you guys know what a Furion is.
Yeah, zero emotion.
Well, I got emotion. I fight for good. I fight for good, and I don't put up with injustice, man. I don't like it. I will go tooth and nail. So I'm just like, I kind of go towards it. I like the conflict. I like getting into it and just screwing up bad people. That's what I love.
I had it backwards. The enemies in the second movie were the ones with no emotion. Like
correct.
I forget what they were called.
The necromongers.
The necromongers. I like that. You keep what you kill in their culture, huh?
Yeah. Riddick 4 is coming out soon too, by the way.
I know they're making another one.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I need that.
I'm surprised he has time from Fast and the Furious 27. But I wanted to do a quick transition. We talk about politics, and this is something I ask everybody just in my personal life too.
Yeah.
As far as presidents go, who do you think will win, and who do you think would be the best for crypto out of Trump, Kennedy, and DeSantis? Or you can ask somebody else also if you have somebody else in mind.
Okay, so the first question is, who do I think is going to win? Man, this is difficult. I actually happen to agree with Tucker Carlson's assessment recently here, which is, they had a special counsel. They tried to see if there's any type of Russian collusion, and they spent $26 million of taxpayer money with that whole snafu. He got impeached once. That didn't work. He got impeached twice. That didn't work. Now he has like 157, charges, and he's indicted in Georgia right now. Is that going to work? I don't know. His poll numbers are continuing to go up. He's the #1 Republican candidate. If history here of the past 5 years is any indication, it's probably going to make him even stronger politically. So I think that Trump probably has a pretty good chance if he's not in jail. And this is the unfortunate part, this is the part I was getting at with Tucker Carlson, which is like everybody has thrown everything at him. unfortunately, this guy is probably he's at high risk for some sort of assassination attempt on his life. And I'm just saying that very straightforward. Secret Service, it's not me. I tend to like Trump's policies. I don't really like the way he carries himself sometimes, or most of the time. But I think Trump will win. And then in terms of who, see, here's the interesting thing. Politicians, they go with the flow. They go with the tide. I know that Kennedy, in terms of his financial leanings, he says he's for Bitcoin. But you got to understand, a lot of Silicon Valley and these college-educated socialists and leftists, they're also for Bitcoin because they don't see it as freedom. They see it as a means of control. And a lot of people don't realize that. I've seen Kennedy's discussions in the past when he wasn't necessarily at the forefront of the public eye that kind of make me a little suspect about what he's actually all about. I think that he would be good for crypto, but I also think that it would be for the wrong reasons. Donald Trump, we found, well, he used NFTs. Okay, so the SEC should probably be investigating Donald Trump. That's coming eventually. I called it here first. It apparently he has $1.5 million worth of Ethereum, and he has some Bitcoin too. That just came out. He was the first president to recognize Bitcoin on the global stage. I think he tweeted something about Bitcoin not ever being better than the US dollar. I don't know about him. Ron DeSantis has fought CBDCs tooth and nail in Florida. Okay, now a lot of people think that Ron DeSantis is a plant, but a lot of his, him and even Ted Cruz, for example, they're a little bit buddy-buddy. They believe in cryptocurrency. They believe in Bitcoin. They believe in people's ability to transact freely. I might think that maybe Ron DeSantis, believe it or not, might be a pretty good option for cryptocurrency if he were to become president.
I live in Florida. I know a little bit about Ron DeSantis. And I don't, I think he's done a great job in Florida. And it's interesting because I'd say I'm conservative personally, but I'm kind of moderate when it comes to my political leanings just because of the way of the world at the moment. I definitely lean conservative. But a lot of my friends that are Democrat or moderate Democrats or whatnot, they like what DeSantis has done here in Florida. And a couple of things, freedom, that's been really important, especially during times where a lot of states, I travel for work. I remember that, trying to get into New York at certain times coming from Florida was almost impossible. I'm like, I have a job to do. I have to just, go to work. Is that possible? But Florida, things stayed pretty free, which people liked. And then the other side of things, like you said, he's fighting against CBDCs. He's trying to allow things to be a little bit more free from a standpoint of cryptocurrencies and money. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that I like all of his policies.
Sure.
But I thought that he had a very terrible start to the presidential run, and I think he was just a little too green. I think in 4 years it might have been better for him. That being said, I like the freedom that one of the parties is trying to push, or some of the people in one party is trying to push, where the other party I see is just wanting control all of the time. I don't see anybody wanting to give any freedom.
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room, and a lot of people don't see it that way, man. And there's subsets of the population that will never see it that way. Okay, and these are, we get into politics. We'll get into politics here, man. I mean, these systems of control were born like in the 1800s, mid to late 1800s, by Marx and Engels. This is what it's all about, okay? And back then they said, hey, there's an issue here, and the workers are getting exploited, and we need to be able to return power back to the people. That's the general idea of what this is, especially with property, etc. Now, we had the opportunity to see those ideas, although a lot of socialists and a lot of Marxists would say that these ideas were perverted via Stalin and others. They say, well, it wasn't real socialism. It wasn't real this, that. what we see is a progression from socialism to communism. So it's kind of like communism light, and then it goes to full-blown communism, and things get really, really, really weird. Another really scary part about this, when people go through these sorts of governmental systems, is in the 20th century here, or in the 20th century, there were more murders and more deaths via the hand of government than the entirety of the human race that we know of in 100 years. How many hundreds of millions have died in Cambodia and in the gulags in Russia? How many people died in Vietnam? How many people, the Chinese?
Maoist China.
Yeah, Maoist. So we've seen this play over and over and over again. We were able to crush it for a while. It's making a comeback again, and they just repackage it, and they do the same thing. They don't want you to. They don't want you to identify as an individual. They want you to identify as a social group, and that way they can actually rank you based on, how much that you've quote unquote destroyed society. And it's really, really bad. It's really, really scary. Nothing but bad things come out of this. It might be okay for a while, and then it will just go absolutely haywire. And then you see bodies pile up. I mean, that's the end game of this. People don't realize it because they preach the utopia, and they try to go out there and say that, the USS Enterprise, right? You guys see Star Trek? And they talked about the kid asks, how did they pay for this huge thing? And then I think it was Picard says, well, the economic system of the future is a little bit different than now. He says, we don't have money. We don't own things. We're just together for the greater good. And as a kid, you're like, oh, that sounds really good. But then in practice, that's really, really bad because it's absolutely 100% against human nature in every single way. And I could go into extreme detail as to why that is. But it's scary, man, to bring it back to what you said. There is one party out there that wants complete control and doesn't preach much freedom at all. And then there is another party out there they're part of the same system and they're screwing people over. They're both complicit, but at least one party, we might push the ball down the road a little bit further.
Couldn't agree more with those two parties. Jay, you got something? Your mic's muted, Jay.
I was just going to comment that what Rag said at the end there, that yes, both parties are complicit, but at the very least, one party is admitting that it is the cost of doing business and is trying to move the ball in the favor of a little bit more freedom, at least more so than the other one is, right? Rags mentioned earlier about how there's quite a large number of people within our generation that does not share the entrepreneurial mindset that we have, right? And maybe that's because I'm a third generation immigrant. All my family, they're all immigrants, and so that kind of work ethic is built into our genes and kind of flows through our blood. But it seems like the other half of the aisle, they've all grown up with leaders and politicians that promote this idea of we're going to take care of you as long as you put us into power, right? But a lot of them don't realize, especially the younger generation, the ones that are more impressionable, that the more you allow them to take care of you, the more that removes your ability to be an individual, right? And it's you know what's strange to me, bro? It seems like so many of those kids, right? They want to be individuals, right? They want to be, it's like my life, the way that I want to live it. But they don't realize by surrendering a lot of that power over to the government, right, so that they can have some modicum of like a safety net underneath. They don't realize that in a long enough time horizon, all of their freedoms are going to be taken away from them.
Yeah,
because go ahead.
It's I'm going to talk directly to that. These are the people that in previous societies, these are the people that towed the government line. They did every single thing right that the government told them to do. And they expected that the government was going to be a benevolent entity. When things go sour, these people are actually the first people to be terminated. Why? It's because these people feel like the government crossed them, like the government lied to them. So they have massive amounts of resentment for the government, and they go up to the government door and they knock and they said, look, I did all these incredible things for you, government. Where's my thing? Where's your promise to me? And what does the government do? Well, they pull out their pistol and shoot them in the head. They're the first to go because they're going to be the most problems, because they're the most emotionally compromised. Everybody else out there, they saw it coming a long time ago, or at least a certain set of the population. So this is the really, really sad part. It's because people are good in their hearts, and they want to trust people, and they want to trust government. And government has done a really, really good job in the 20th century of replacing the idea of God, and now the idea is of government. It used to be, hey, we're going to be out west, we're going to be on the frontier, and we're going to pray to God every night to take care of us, and we're going to take all the actions that we need to, and we're just going to pray to God to do this. Well, now it's like, hey, we're going to expect the government to do all this. The government's going to be our big brother, our big sister, our mom, our dad. And guess what? Oh, that tree across the street, that needs to be cut down by the government. And oh, guess what? I can't eat right now. Well, the government should pay. And healthcare. Okay, so it just keeps going. So there's a lot of things that have been going on that have happened in the past. We can learn a lot from that history without going too far in the weeds. That's kind of what I think about it.
Well, the way that I've always put it is basically like this: we're ancient beings that think like industrialists who are living in a modern era. Ultimately, we really don't know what to do with ourselves, and we're still trying to figure that out right now. Because I mean, we still have that instinct for violence, right? But in a modern society, that violence is very unwelcome and in fact harmful. So it's like, how do you get out that rage then, right? Well, usually that's where you would go build something industrial, right? So you got to try and think of something. But yeah, we're still trying to figure it all out, I think.
There's good points there, man. And these ebb and flow over decades and decades and decades. And who knows what the psychological effects of what you're talking about are. And just think about this, guys. I have a child, and I've seen the way that they treat my small male child in school, and they try to castrate him spiritually and emotionally. They try to stop him from being who he is as a little boy, bouncing off the walls, being very intrepid, being loud and outspoken, being a little bit violent as boys are. And the first thing that comes out of these teachers' mouths are, hey, you need to put this kid on medication, or hey, this kid has a problem. And the kid doesn't have a problem. You look at all the philosophers, and sorry guys, if you're in my stream, I talk about this a lot. I've been on this soapbox lately. It's like you look at Plato and Socrates, and you look at Bacon, and all these people realized a long time ago that, for example, a male child should be out of the classroom for the first 11 years of his life. And he should be in nature, running around, playing around. He shouldn't be learning how to spell and how to add. He should be learning morals and ethics. And there's a point in time when they're between like the ages of maybe 9 to 11 years old where their brain develops enough to where they have the focus to be able to sit in the classroom and pick up these other concepts. So education was completely different from the age of 10 to 20 years old, for that reason. So how come we've fundamentally changed everything in the past 150 years, and how come we are penalizing boys for being boys, for example? So I think you brought up a good point. We're just kind of touching on these things here, but there's quite a bit going on, man. There's quite a bit.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing too to that. Like Tracker and I, we're already planning. I think Jeff, you're going to be joining us in it, but we're planning on doing kind of like a controversial stream where we're insights. Where we dive deeper into stuff. We allow usually more time and all that, and we specifically want to be talking about these types of things and how it kind of relates to crypto and freedom and all that, right? And so, like, I invite you to join because I think you'd enjoy the hell out of it, quite frankly. And like, I don't know, I started listening to you today, specifically like going through a bunch of your podcasts. I'm like, I really like the way this guy thinks, and I think we really should do it, man.
Dude, let's go, man. If I got the time, I'll hop on, guys. I definitely will. I love stuff like this.
That'd be great. Yeah, I love anything philosophical, any type of debates. But just to touch on some of your points earlier, we were talking about, dystopian versus utopian futures. In basically no situation I can think of that utopia works out, because for the beginning of time, what drives success is most of the time, not all the time, is competition, right?
Yeah.
So once you start taking away the ability to do better by working harder, okay, let's say a new virus breaks out. I don't even know if I should say that word, but let's say another one breaks out. Well, what is going to incentivize somebody to learn all this biochemistry to come up with something preventative when I could just sit on my couch and eat potato chips and get paid $40,000 a year to do nothing?
Yeah.
Why am I going to strive for anything?
Right.
So there's
Do
that
you
already.
they think that they're not capable of learning it. That's what they planted inside these young people's heads. What if this virus broke out in the 1940s? I think that college educated undergraduates that had access to the literature of the time about virology would be far more motivated to go and learn about this themselves, and maybe their brain is the brain that figures out how to fix things. But we've outsourced all of our thinking to the state, and it's dangerous. It's dangerous to trust it. We don't know what it is, but when humans get involved in centralized government on long enough time horizons, horrible things always happen. And it's just like evil takes shape. The impulses of good and evil are I guess they're more controllable at the individual level rather than the level of a multiplicity of people. So
No, I like it.
Yeah.
Good deal. Wait, yeah, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, because we were on this topic, something kind of made me remember one of the comments that Rags made earlier about how there are two things that move people: pain and pleasure. Right? I think that's true, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we're kind of on the subject, I think they have to exist simultaneously. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't just have pain and you can't just have pleasure to move people.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because I forgot who said it. It was a philosopher. It went something along the lines of if the only thing that you gave people to do was to busy themselves with the procreation of the species, and you gave them nothing but cake, it wouldn't be too long until they got bored and they started tearing everything up, right?
Yep.
And that's exactly what happened in 2020, right? You sent everybody home. You told them it's safe there, it's comfortable, you're not exposed to Android 19, and we're going to take care of you financially. We're going to send you these checks. You don't have to go to work. You don't have to do any of that. You can just sit at home and stay comfortable and safe. And what happened? A good amount of the people went out and destroyed things, burned cities down, right? Because they lost one part of it. All they had was comfort and pleasure, and they got too comfortable and they got bored because there was no pain. Theoretically, there was no pain involved, and so they went out to go destroy things because they got bored. Because they got bored, all they had was the pleasure. Right? All they had was comfort.
That's why we provide the alternative. Yes, so. We're living the pain right now, and the natural byproduct of that is people creating the alternative, which is the pleasure part, which is the thing that solves their problem. It sounds so salesy right now, but it's true. It's human psychology. It's behavior. So yeah, man, I'm glad that you provided that context. I think people needed to hear that. Thank you.
So Rags, real quick. I know we haven't talked about TEXAN in a while, so I had a quick question about it. Then I wanted you to tell me where I could find more info about it, where I could find more info about you and stuff. So first quick question: what outperforms TEXAN on which chain this cycle?
Man, I've thought about that quite a bit. That's a difficult one. Okay,
Yeah.
Here's why. So is it going to be Pulse Chain? Is it going to be Ethereum? There's one thing to consider with Ethereum. You got to understand that we're onboarding no coiners. Crypto is already hard. Crypto becomes 100 times harder when you have to cross a bridge for somebody that barely knows how to use MetaMask or anything else. So what we've been seeing is actually, after initial fall off, there was a huge pump, and then we've kind of just bottomed out at this level for many, 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 many months. We're seeing that there's actually some people that are accumulating some really, really big bags on the Ethereum side. So, if what we're saying is going to play out and we're tokenizing this community and they want it as simple as possible, their neighbor is going to tell them, or their organization member is going to tell them how to buy it on Ethereum. The other part of that is if people start buying it, then it starts showing up on exchanges, it starts showing up on scanners, and then the whole world apes in, which happens with every token during a bull run. So that's kind of hard. But to make the argument for Pulse Chain, the fact that TEXAN is bonded in liquidity with Pulse is pretty big, because if Pulse even does 100x, that's something that Ethereum's not going to do when TEXAN is paired up with Ethereum. Ethereum, we might get lucky to get a 5x out of Ethereum or a 3x. So that can pull it up quite a bit as well. Also, this is a nascent chain. There's probably only 30,000 active users right now, or maybe less, 15,000. And there's just a whole lot more ceiling. So I can't make that call, man. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking Ethereum might do pretty well though this cycle.
I'll go ahead and get both. So for people wondering where to find out more info, where would you direct them to?
Yeah. So one cool thing about our Telegram that we set up, it's t.me/TEXAN token. We encourage people from all over cryptocurrency, or even if you're not in cryptocurrency, to come in our Telegram. And you don't even have to own TEXAN. If you have any questions at all that we can answer for you, we will answer it in such a way that we're not going to make you feel stupid. That's very important. And we're going to answer it in such a way to make sure that you understand, so that we are there to serve the population of cryptocurrency. And if you buy our thing, cool. If not, that's fine too. So t.me/TEXAN token. Check out texan.cc as well. You can find me at R2R, which is here in my signature, and that's on YouTube. You'll see a lot of my daily stuff there. And then you can also find me, just put RAGS2RICHES crypto in Twitter, and you'll see me pop up with some shades. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Jay, go ahead.
I was just going to say there's one more thing that I wanted to ask about Rags, and since he was already talking about his resources, you mentioned earlier that you had your own newsletter, which was the Dollar Riot newsletter. Can you tell people about that, how to find it, and the things that you cover within that newsletter as well?
Yeah, so two things I'll cover. The first thing is, and this I think is more important than Dollar Riot. If you know somebody who's brand new to cryptocurrency, they don't know anything about it, I created a free, absolutely free online course, no strings attached, mycryptoclassroom.com. So you can send anybody that you know. And the cool thing is I'm not shilling any project. Okay. So I'm not talking about TEXAN. I'm not talking about Link. I'm not talking about Pepe or Doge. This is just pretty cool. I've got a set of videos, and I've also got some multiple choice assignments and some downloadable sheets that people can look at. And I take people through the implications, the history of cryptocurrency, the Satoshi white papers, all that sort of thing. And it's only about an hour to an hour and a half of coursework, but it's just enough for a working person to be able to play with over a night or two. So mycryptoclassroom.com, completely free to sign up there. DollarRiot.com is a newsletter that I created because I think newsletters are pretty neat. Go straight to your inbox. You can kind of look at it on your own time. And it's just some of the news of the day. I've been working to find somebody to help me out with that recently, but we've got tons of articles on there. You can check it out. It will require an email address. It is not paid. Okay, so nothing that I do requires you to give me money. If you're stupid enough to give me money, I have a Patreon, and I will shame you for it. That's very important to know. So
That's fantastic. I love that you don't really want to push your own stuff, but you want to put people onto platforms that allow them to learn and better themselves and become more self-sufficient and more self-sovereign. You know, part of the reason that we created this channel, really the main reason, was to help people in this space learn crypto. You know, we've all made mistakes. We've learned the hard way, and we want to help people not make the same mistakes we have, to not get within, you know, like you said earlier, there's a lot of scams, you know, not to get caught up with those. And, you know, we have a Telegram as well. So in our description, you can see that. Our Telegram is free. We just allow people to come there, ask questions, help people onboard, and do whatever we can. We run some emergency calls once in a while if big news drops. If something affects the coin, Jay hops on and charts real quick, shows people what's happening in the markets to try to remove a lot of the fear that people are having, and just be able to look at things after you take a step back with a calm and concise mind, because there's a lot of people that run in this area with emotion, and emotion is just going to get you wrecked. So learn, listen, follow RAGS, go to mycryptoclassroom.com. And honestly, is before we close up, RAGS, I just want to thank you for coming on. Honestly, it's been a pleasure talking to you on a variety of topics, shedding some light on some of the information of your project, TEXAN Coin. Tell me if I'm incorrect or misspeak on anything, but I just want to recap a couple things that were interesting to me. So first of all, it was intriguing because it's deflationary. It's very community driven. It has a lot better mechanisms than other platforms being built out, like interest scraping, no origin address. Interest is based on the length of stake and not on status or coin count or whale or Poseidon or whatever else. Essentially, it allows the blockchain to be given back to the people and to organizations that want to use it to build and better themselves, and in turn hope to better the future for humanity. And also being a nonprofit organization, that's pretty amazing as well. Did I miss anything?
I think you summarized it well. Thank you.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think you've shed a lot of light on a project that I only knew a little bit about. And I can tell you that I'm very, very intrigued, and I love what you're building. I don't say that because you're on the show. I say that because I can truly, genuinely see that you want to help people. And I think that is amazing. I don't think there's enough people in the space that are doing that. And if they are doing that, they're doing that to also benefit their own bottom line. Look, it's fine to make money in crypto. I have no problem with that. If you're providing a service that helps people and it costs money, no problem. But if you're doing it from a nonprofit standpoint and you're just there to literally try to help people and help the world, I mean, how can I look down upon that? So keep doing what you're doing, man. Absolutely great. If you could just hang on for 2 minutes once we finish the stream, just to thank you off stream. But everyone else, thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Join our Telegram. It's free, and you can get a lot of information in there. And if there's any content that you want to see us, or anybody you want to see us interview, any projects that you want to see us cover, we're just trying to bring as much information to the crypto community as possible. So we are here to help you, and we're here to provide content that will be beneficial to everyone. So again, thank you, like, subscribe, and we will see you all Sunday night, 8 p.m. for our normal show. Rags, thanks again. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah.